What if I told you that some of the most beloved sitcom stars who once earned millions per episode ended up in courtrooms instead of on set? From the shocking downfall of Bill Cosby to the scandal that ended Michael Richards' career. Here are 25 sitcom stars accused of serious crimes. 1. Bill Cosby. Once seen as America's favorite father, Bill Cosby had his reputation destroyed by serious accusations. For decades, many women spoke out, saying he had substances and harmed them. These stories went back to the 1960s, showing a pattern where Cosby used his fame to gain trust, only to betray it. One woman's report in 2004 started the first legal case against him. But it wasn't until 2014, after a comedian made a joke about Cosby's past, that people really started paying attention. His downfall was fast. Investigators found strong evidence, including his own admission that he got substances to use on women. In 2018, he was found guilty and sent to prison, making history as one of the biggest cases of its kind. He was sentenced to years behind bars for crimes that had remained hidden for too long. But in 2021, the court overturned his conviction due to legal issues, and he was released. Many people were shocked and angry, feeling that justice had failed. Cosby's name, once tied to family values, is now linked to betrayal and disgrace. 2. Robert Downey Jr. Fame came young for Robert Downey Jr., but trouble followed. Born into a Hollywood family, he was exposed to bad habits early. By the 1990s, his talent was buried under a battle with addiction. He was arrested many times for possession of illegal substances and was once found passed out in a stranger's home. People watched as he struggled, trying and failing to get clean. In 1999, after breaking the law again, a judge sent him to prison. Unlike many stars who avoided punishment, Downey served real time. Many thought his career was over. Hollywood turned its back on him. Even after his release, he was caught under the influence again. It seemed hopeless. But against all odds, he fought to get clean. He worked hard to turn his life around, training and staying focused. In 2008, he got the chance of a lifetime, playing Iron Man, a billionaire with a troubled past. The role was more than acting. It was his real-life story. He didn't just rebuild his career, he became one of Hollywood's biggest stars. His fall had been devastating, but his comeback was incredible. 3. Tim Allen. Before the laughs and fame, Tim Allen's life nearly ended behind bars. In 1978, he stood in an airport, unaware that his world was about to change forever. He was caught with a huge amount of illegal substances, enough to land him in prison for life. The authorities had been watching, and when they closed in, he faced a choice: stay silent and risk never getting out, or cooperating. He chose to talk. By giving up names, he reduced his sentence. Instead of life in prison, he served just over 2 years. Prison changed him. Behind bars, he discovered a talent that would later make him famous: comedy. He learned to survive with humor, making people laugh, even in the darkest place. When he was released in 1981, he carried the weight of his past, but was determined to start over. It wasn't easy, but by the 1990s, he had done the impossible, becoming a beloved star. However, old habits lingered. In 1997, he was caught driving under the influence. This time, he faced his mistakes differently. He got help, took responsibility, and came out stronger. His journey is rare. Someone who nearly lost everything but turned his life around. 4. Kelsey Grammar. The world knew Kelsey Grammar as Dr. Frasier Crane, the witty but awkward psychiatrist on Cheers and Frasier. But off-screen, his life was far from controlled. Behind the scenes, he battled addiction, reckless behavior, and run-ins with the law. His troubles began in the 1980s, a time filled with personal losses and self-destruction. Even as Cheers made him a star, he was already struggling. In 1988, police caught him with illicit powder. He went to rehab, but it didn't end his addiction. The cycle continued, and so did his legal troubles. By the 1990s, his career was soaring, but his problems didn't stop. In 1990, he was arrested again for illicit powder possession. Instead of prison, he struck a deal and went to rehab. Frasier premiered in 1993 and became a huge hit, but his personal life remained a mess. In 1995, he crashed his car while intoxicated and spent time in jail. Another rehab stay followed, but addiction still held on to him. Many stars see their careers collapse under scandal, but Grammar defied the odds. He kept winning awards, starring in hit shows, and staying in the public eye. Some questioned if his talent excused his behavior. Eventually, he got sober, crediting his family for saving him. While he remains a TV legend, his past serves as a reminder of how close he came to losing everything. Some stars fall, others walk the edge, and somehow survive. 5. Michael Richards. Laughter followed Michael Richards everywhere, thanks to his wild energy as Cosmo Kramer on Seinfeld. His goofy movie, big entrances, and unpredictable humor made him a fan favorite. But when the cameras turned off, one mistake changed everything. In 2006, Richards was still respected in the comedy world. That ended when he performed at the Laugh Factory in Los Angeles. A heckler interrupted his set, and instead of making a joke, Richards snapped. He shouted racist slurs, saying things no one should ever say. He even made horrible comments about lynching. The crowd fell silent. Some recorded it, and the video spread everywhere. His career ended in seconds. Unlike comedians who push boundaries with offensive jokes, Richards' words weren't seen as humor. They came from anger. He apologized on The Late Show with David Letterman, but it didn't help. He looked nervous, his words didn't feel real, and people didn't forgive him. Hollywood turned its back on him. The roles disappeared. His career wasn't just damaged, it was gone. Unlike others who found a way back after scandals, Richards never really recovered. That night at the Laugh Factory became the one thing people remembered about him. He tried to return a few times, but it never worked. Even in an industry that forgives, his mistake was too big. He had spent years making people laugh, but one moment of anger erased everything. Some mistakes fade over time, others stay forever. 6. Richard Pryor. A legend in comedy, Richard Pryor changed stand-up forever with his fearless and raw humor. But his life off stage was wild. Chaos, addiction, and trouble followed him everywhere. The same fire that made him brilliant also burned him. By the late 1970s, Pryor was on top. Sold out shows, hit movies, he was unstoppable. But behind the scenes, substances took control. In 1978, he was arrested for illicit powder possession. No one was surprised. His substance use led to paranoia, rage, and self-destruction. Later that year, things got worse. In a substance-fueled breakdown, he fired a gun inside his house. No one was hurt, but it was clear he was spiraling. He avoided serious punishment, but those close to him knew disaster was coming. The world kept laughing at his jokes, even as his life crumbled. Then came the night in 1980 that changed everything. High on illicit powder, Pryor poured rum over himself and lit a match. He went up in flames. His body was covered in burns, and he barely survived. It was a wake-up call, a moment that should have ended him, but somehow he kept going. Unlike other stars who fell and never got up, Pryor turned his pain into comedy. He joked about his struggles, making even his darkest moments funny. The audience still loved him, even when his life was falling apart. His influence on comedy is undeniable, but so is the suffering he carried. He showed that genius and destruction can exist together, that fame doesn't erase pain, and that even legends have scars. 7. Andy Kaufman. Comedy was never simple with Andy Kaufman. His jokes weren't just funny, they were confusing, weird, and sometimes even upsetting. People never knew if they were laughing with him or if they were the joke. He loved playing tricks on audiences, blurring the line between what was real and what was fake. Even his arrest in the 1970s is a mystery. The official reason? Disorderly conduct. But with Kaufman, nothing was ever that simple. It happened during one of his chaotic performances. His act was always strange, but this time it went too far. Some say he interrupted a public event. Others think it was just another one of his stunts. Either way, the police got involved, and Kaufman ended up in jail. But was he upset? Probably not. For him, everything was part of the act, even getting arrested. Unlike other TV stars who got in trouble for serious reasons, Kaufman's arrest wasn't about breaking the law in a traditional way. It was just another way for him to push limits and keep people guessing. Even in handcuffs, he probably thought of it as part of the performance. Kaufman passed away in the 1980s, but his legend still lives on. Fans still argue over what was real and what was just an act. Was his arrest serious or just another one of his tricks? With Kaufman, no one will ever really know. 8. Scott Baio. Fame came early for Scott Baio, making him one of the most popular actors on TV. He starred in hit shows like Happy Days and Charles in Charge, winning over fans with his charm and good looks. But years later, his name was in the news for a much darker reason. In the late 2010s, his former co-star, Nicole Eggert, accused him of doing something terrible when she was a teenager. Eggert said Baio took advantage of his fame and manipulated her. The news shocked Hollywood, especially because Baio had a clean, family-friendly image. But unlike other cases that led to arrests or court trials, this one never made it that far. The law couldn't step in because too much time had passed. Baio denied everything. He said it was all a lie, made up to hurt him. There was no trial, no judge, no sentence, just two sides of the story being argued in interviews and on social media. Some people believed Eggert, others supported Baio. But one thing was clear: his reputation was ruined. 9. Robert Blake. Fame once followed Robert Blake, known for playing tough characters on screen. But in the early 2000s, his own life became a shocking crime story. The world was stunned when he was accused of the worst crime. The crime. His wife, Bonnie Lee Backley, was found shot in a parked car outside a Los Angeles restaurant. Blake said he had stepped away for just a moment to get a gun he had left inside. When he came back, she was dead. But the gun he retrieved was not the one used in the crime. Police looked into their marriage and found trouble. Their relationship had been rocky, full of anger and problems. Blake had wanted to end things with Backley, but a DNA test proved he was the father of their daughter. Then, two stuntmen told police that Blake had asked them to get rid of his wife. The trial was big news, and Hollywood watched closely. There was no clear evidence linking Blake to the crime, so the jury found him not guilty. He was free, but not for long. A civil court later ruled that he was responsible for Backley's death and ordered him to pay millions. He lost his money, his career, and lived under suspicion for the rest of his life. 10. Paul Reubens. Best known as Pee Wee Herman, Paul Reubens created a funny, childlike character loved by many. But behind his silly act, a scandal changed everything. In the early 2000s, police searched his home for an unrelated case and found something disturbing. Authorities claimed he had illegal materials linked to minors. The legal battle was fast and intense. At first, he faced serious charges, and his career took a huge hit. But in 2004, he made a deal, pleading guilty to a lesser charge. He avoided jail, but the damage was done. Hollywood wanted nothing to do with him. Pee Wee Herman, once a beloved name, was now connected to scandal. Over time, Rubens tried to return to acting. He took small roles in TV and movies. In 2016, he even made a new Pee Wee Herman film. Some fans welcomed him back, but others couldn't forget his past. Unlike some stars who faced legal trouble, he never went to prison. But in the eyes of the public, he was already punished. His bright career would never be the same. 11. David Cassidy. Fame came early for David Cassidy, making him a superstar as Keith Partridge on The Partridge Family. Teenagers loved him. His face was everywhere, magazines, posters, concerts. But fame was hard for him, and over time, his life fell apart. His voice once filled stadiums, but later it was police sirens that followed him. He was arrested multiple times for driving under the influence, showing a sad pattern of addiction. The first arrest happened in the early 2010s. Police stopped him for reckless driving, and his blood alcohol level was dangerously high. He called it a mistake, but it happened again. A few years later, he was arrested for another DUI in New York, then another in California. 3 arrests in 4 years painted a clear picture. Cassidy was struggling. He went to rehab, but the fight wasn't over. Then came the shocking news. Cassidy revealed he had dementia. Years of drinking had damaged his health. In 2017, his body couldn't take it anymore. Organ failure put him in the hospital, and within days he passed away. The teen idol who once seemed untouchable had lost his battle. 12. Freddy Prince. Rising fast in Hollywood, Freddy Prince had talent, charm, and a leading role in Chico and the Man. People loved his comedy, but behind the jokes, he was struggling. His battle with addiction was well known, but when he was arrested in the 1970s for having illegal substances, it was clear things were worse than anyone realized. His problems went far beyond the law. He was falling apart under the pressure of fame. Friends saw the changes. He was moody, paranoid, and losing control. His marriage fell apart, and his personal life got worse. Then tragedy struck. Overcome with sadness, Prince took his own life. Before he did, he made phone calls to loved ones, desperate for help. But it was too late. He was only 22 years old. His bright future ended too soon, leaving behind a heartbroken industry and fans who never saw it coming. His death forced Hollywood to face a harsh truth. Many stars had been arrested for substances, but this was different. This wasn't just about breaking the law, it was about deep pain that fame couldn't fix. Decades later, his son, Freddy Prince Jr., built his own career in Hollywood, carrying the memory of a father lost too soon. 13. Leif Garrett. Fame came early for Leif Garrett, making him a huge star in the late 1970s. With his good looks and talent, he had everything going for him. But in 1979, his life took a terrible turn. At just 17 years old, he made a choice that would haunt him forever. He got behind the wheel while under the influence, and the crash changed everything. His best friend, Roland Winkler, was left paralyzed. It was a mistake Garrett could never take back. Even though he didn't face serious legal trouble, the guilt was overwhelming. His life started to fall apart, and addiction soon took over. He was arrested again and again for substance possession, and his career crumbled. The young heartthrob who once graced magazine covers became unrecognizable. Every mugshot told the same story, a life spiraling out of control. Rehab offered short-lived hope, but he kept relapsing. The bright future he once had seemed lost forever. By the 2000s, Garrett's struggles were more public than ever. A 2006 arrest for illicit opioids shocked fans, leading to an intervention and a stint on reality TV. Cameras followed his recovery, but his past wouldn't let go. His life became a painful reminder of how one reckless decision can lead to years of regret and suffering. 14. Sherman Hemsley. Fame followed Sherman Hemsley for years thanks to his sharp-witted and fiery portrayal of George Jefferson, a character loved by millions. But behind the scenes, his real life had struggles of its own. By the late 1990s, long after his sitcom days, Hemsley found himself in an unexpected scandal. In 1999, police arrested him for illicit powder possession. Fans were shocked. Hemsley had always seemed to stay out of trouble. Unlike other stars who had long histories of arrests, this seemed like a one-time mistake. But it also showed how hard it can be to stay relevant in Hollywood. Fame fades fast, and the pressure can push people toward bad decisions. Though his career had slowed, Hemsley still found work in TV and voice acting. He managed to avoid the downward spiral that trapped so many others. But the arrest stayed with him, a small but lasting stain on an otherwise successful career. Even after his death in 2012, his name made headlines again. Legal battles over his estate revealed chaos behind the scenes. Though his legacy remains tied to his groundbreaking role on TV, his past mistakes remind us that even the most beloved stars can have struggles hidden from the public eye. 15. Red Fox. Laughter followed Red Fox everywhere, but his real life was no joke. Best known for Sanford & Son, he should have been rich for life. Instead, he ended up broke because of bad spending and poor financial choices. Even though he made millions, Fox drowned in debt. By the late 1980s, the IRS demanded about $3 million in unpaid taxes. He had spent too much on fancy cars, jewelry, and gambling. In 1989, the government took almost everything he owned in a humiliating raid. The actor who played a struggling junk dealer now faced the same fate in real life. Fox tried to rebuild his career with a new show, The Royal Family, but in 1991, while filming, he collapsed on set. At first, people thought he was joking, pretending to have one of his famous fake heart attacks from Sanford & Son, but this time, it was real. He died at 68. Fox left behind a powerful legacy. He broke barriers in comedy and inspired future comedians. But his downfall was a warning about how fast wealth can disappear. His name will always be tied to laughter, but his life story is also a lesson in poor money management and reckless living. 16. Dustin Diamond. Fame followed Dustin Diamond early in life, known to millions as Screech from Saved by the Bell. But after the show ended, his path was nothing like his co-stars. While they found success, he faced money problems, bad choices, and scandals. But nothing was worse than what happened in 2014. One night in a small Wisconsin bar, an argument turned heated. In the chaos, Diamond pulled out a knife. Witnesses said panic spread as the blade flashed. A man was injured. Diamond claimed he was only protecting his fiancée, but police heard a different story. Charged with carrying a concealed weapon and reckless endangerment, Diamond's trial was another stain on his career. He avoided the worst charges, but still went to jail. By then, his career was already falling apart. A tell-all book had ruined friendships, reality TV stints failed to help him, and he struggled to stay relevant in Hollywood. Even after his release, life didn't get better. Health issues made things worse. Then, in early 2021, he got terrible news: a terminal diagnosis. Within weeks, he was gone. 17. Todd Bridges. Fame came early for Todd Bridges, making him a household name as Willis Jackson on Different Strokes. But by the late 1980s, his life had taken a dark turn. He was no longer famous for acting. He was in the news for crime, substances, and trouble with the law. In South Central Los Angeles, a substance dealer was shot multiple times in a crack house. Prosecutors said Bridges was the shooter, high on illicit powder. Since he had struggled with substances before, many believed it. But was it true? Bridges needed a strong defense. His lawyer, Johnny Cochran, who later defended O.J. Simpson, argued that the police had framed him. The jury had doubts, so they let Bridges go free. But the damage was done. His career was over. His name was ruined, and his problems weren't over. Even though he avoided prison, he couldn't escape his addictions. The 1990s brought more arrests, more substances, and more moments when it seemed like he wouldn't survive. But Bridges refused to give up. 18. Dana Plato. Fame came early for Dana Plato, making her a household name as Kimberly Drummond on Different Strokes. On TV, she had a perfect life. Off-screen, it was a mess. When the show ended, so did her stability. She had no job, no money, and a growing substance problem. Desperate, she made a choice that changed everything. In the early 1990s, she walked into a video store in Las Vegas with a pellet gun and demanded money. The clerk recognized her. The police arrived fast, and she was arrested. A former TV sweetheart had become an armed robber. Her mugshot was everywhere, proof of how far she had fallen. That wasn't the end of her troubles. A year later, she was arrested again for forging prescriptions. Hollywood had moved on, and she couldn't get work. She tried low-budget movies, reality TV, and even posed for Playboy. But nothing worked. In 1999, her story took a tragic turn. She went on live radio, saying she was doing better. The next day, she was gone. She took too many pills. The official report called it an accident, but many think it wasn't. 19. Gerard Depardieu. A towering figure in French cinema, Gerard Depardieu built a career on powerful performances and a larger-than-life presence. But in 2018, his reputation took a serious hit. A young actress accused him of a terrible crime, saying he forced himself on her during a casual rehearsal at his home in Paris. At first, the case didn't go far because there wasn't enough proof. Still, rumors followed him. Over the years, people had questioned his behavior, pointing to his rude comments about women and his unpredictable actions. Some believed his fame and powerful friends kept him safe from consequences. Then, in 2021, everything changed. Authorities reopened the case and officially charged him. The woman who had stayed quiet at first came forward with a detailed story. She claimed he used his power to trap and control her, making the public see him not as a great actor, but as a man accused of serious wrongdoing. Depardieu denied it all, calling the accusations false. But the damage was done. More women began to speak out, sharing similar stories. Some in the film industry turned their backs on him, while others defended him, saying he was being unfairly targeted. Despite the scandal, he continued working, though his career was not what it once was. Whether he will ever face real consequences is uncertain. 20. Gary Buucy. Unpredictability defined Gary Buucy. His intense acting and wild energy made him a standout in Hollywood, but off-screen, his life was just as dramatic. By the mid-90s, people had already noticed his strange behavior. Then the police searched his home and found a stash of illegal substances, illicit powder, stimulants, and herbal substances. His arrest proved what many feared. Buucy was out of control. His problems had started long before that. In the late 80s, he had a terrible motorcycle accident. He wasn't wearing a helmet, and the crash left him with a serious brain injury. Some believed it changed him, making his wild personality even more extreme. Whether that was true or not, what followed was a series of bizarre actions and bad decisions. His arrest forced him to get help. He went to rehab and tried to turn things around. He spoke about recovery and change, but his reputation never fully recovered. Hollywood still gave him work, but not in the way it used to. Instead of serious acting roles, he became known for playing strange, over-the-top versions of himself in reality shows and low-budget movies. Years have passed since his biggest scandals, but they still follow him. His story, a lesson in fame, chaos, and second chances. 21. Tony Danza. With a big smile and undeniable charm, Tony Danza seemed made for TV. But in 1978, just as his star was rising, he got into serious trouble. One minute, he was a promising actor. The next, he was in handcuffs. It happened in a bar in New York City, where a fight got out of control. Danza, a former boxer, knew how to throw punches, but this wasn't a boxing match. Witnesses saw chaos, fists flying, someone knocked out cold, and blood on the floor. The timing was terrible. His show, Taxi, had just started, and producers worried the scandal would ruin it. Danza acted fast. He apologized and handled the legal issues quietly. In the end, the charge was reduced to disorderly conduct. No jail time, but the fight left a mark on his record. He worked hard to fix his image, becoming known as a friendly, likable guy. He stayed out of major trouble after that, but the bar fight never fully disappeared from his past. It was a reminder of how quickly fame and fortune could be put at risk. 22. George Carlin. Never afraid to speak his mind, George Carlin built a legacy with sharp humor and bold opinions, but they also got him arrested. In the early 1970s, during his performance at Milwaukee Summerfest, he delivered his famous 7 words you can't say on TV routine. The audience loved it. The police did not. They arrested him for public obscenity, taking him away as he laughed, knowing this would only strengthen his message. Carlin's arrest became more than just a personal problem. It sparked a nationwide debate about free speech. His case went to court, leading to a major legal battle over what was considered indecent in America. The Supreme Court eventually ruled that his words could be restricted under certain conditions. But instead of damaging his career, the arrest made him even more famous. He continued fighting against censorship and government control, turning the moment into part of his legacy. Carlin never apologized. He kept pushing boundaries, refusing to be silenced. While other TV stars got in trouble for personal mistakes, his crime was speaking the truth. In the end, his rebellion changed comedy forever. 23. Jimmy Walker. By the early 1980s, Jimmy Walker was a big name in Hollywood. Best known as J.J. Evans on Good Times, he starred in a show that families loved, and parents saw him as a role model for their kids. But in 1983, everything changed when he was arrested for possessing herbal substances. At the time, the war on substances was serious. Even a small charge could ruin someone's career. The media quickly turned on him, and rumors spread. Some wondered if it was just for personal use, or if something bigger was going on. No evidence ever surfaced that he did more than simply possess it, but the damage was done. Hollywood moved on fast. Acting opportunities disappeared, and Walker focused on stand-up comedy, but the roles he once landed easily were gone. Years later, he spoke about how quickly Hollywood forgets its stars over a single mistake. His story is a reminder that even the most beloved actors aren't safe from being pushed aside. 24. Ken Wahl. Hollywood saw Ken Wahl as the perfect leading man, tough, intense, and commanding on screen. Starring in Wise Guy, he played an undercover agent fighting criminals, but in real life, his own troubles were catching up with him. Behind the scenes, his life was unraveling. Struggles with addiction led to reckless decisions, and soon the headlines weren't about his acting. They were about his legal troubles. The worst came when a domestic fight escalated into a legal battle. Accusations flew, and even though some charges were dropped, his reputation never recovered. Hollywood wasn't willing to take a chance on him anymore. The roles stopped coming, and his career faded. Wall later claimed that a serious spinal injury from a motorcycle accident made things even worse. But by then, it was too late. A few attempts at a comeback failed, and eventually, he disappeared from the industry. 25. Anson Williams. For years, Anson Williams was known as Potsy Weber from Happy Days. He stayed out of trouble and avoided the problems that many other actors faced. But in 2012, everything changed. He was pulled over for dangerous driving and charged with driving under the influence. Fans were shocked. Williams had always seemed responsible. How could he make a mistake like this? Unlike some celebrities, he didn't try to hide or make excuses. He admitted his mistake, took responsibility, and promised to change. But in a time when the public judged harshly, the backlash was quick. Even though he had moved from acting to directing, the scandal still hurt his reputation. Williams didn't let this one bad choice define him. He kept working behind the scenes and proved that a mistake doesn't have to ruin everything. Some stars never bounce back from scandal, while others fight to rebuild their name. The real question is, who will be remembered for their failures and who will rewrite their story?